for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
Yeah, my name is Jack Prince, your fellow co-host.
Hey, how are you today, Jack?
Good, Darren. How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing good. I'm doing perfect. For a change, finally.
Hey, sounds good to hear.
Yeah,
because evidently the city of Grand Rapids can't say the same thing.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to devote our special episode to. We're going to talk about mental illness for 1 hour today. It's a topic that's very near and dear to me as somebody who suffers from mental illness. It's a very important topic to me, and I kind of want to talk about some things that have come up with the city of Grand Rapids and its ranking among large cities when it comes to the amount of population that is depressed. We'll get to that in just a moment, but before we get there, reminder that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com. Do a search for Southpaws there. You can find us at the iTunes Store. Do a search for Southpaws under podcast, and once you've found our logo, you found us. All of our shows also go automatically to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com. Do a search for Southpaws Radio there. And, of course, we're on Great Pacifica stations across the country, and we're on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Monday night at 9 p.m. We're on right after Democracy Now!, so make sure you check us out there as well. So we wanted to talk about mental illness and some of the things that are involved with it. And this kind of came about because of a study that has recently come out. I've got this. This is from WZZM Television here in Grand Rapids. I'll just read this to you. The number of Americans diagnosed has been on the rise over the past few years, and that is especially true in Grand Rapids, according to a recent study. They forgot to mention diagnosed with depression. There has been an increase of almost 18% of Americans diagnosed with depression between 2016 and 2017, and a study conducted by insurance providers shows Grand Rapids has the highest rate of depression among large U.S. metro cities, with 25% of residents diagnosed. 1 out of every 4 people in this town have depression. The study indicates that there are a number of factors that can impact mental health, including genetics, stress, environment, physical health, finances, and divorce. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and census data from the study show higher divorce rates generally correspond to higher rates of depression. However, whether people suffering from depression are at higher risk of divorce or whether divorce itself increases the risk of depression is still being debated. Also, unchecked mental illness can directly impact physical health. Researchers found mental health diagnoses were linked to higher rates of infectious disease, respiratory disease, and weight gain. The study indicated a positive correlation between depression and obesity. Lastly, researchers found reinforcement in the relationship between financial health and mental health. Lack of funds for rent, health care, and food all increase stress and can trigger mental health issues. Depression can hinder job performance or make for a difficult time finding employment at all. Behind Grand Rapids, Cincinnati ranked second for its share of adults diagnosed with depression with 24.5%. Other top cities were Birmingham, Alabama, Rochester, New York, and Salt Lake City, Utah. Cities that ranked the lowest for depression were Miami, New York City, and Washington, D.C. Then they have a breakdown. This is the percentage of people in Grand Rapids diagnosed with depression and the correlation to factors like divorce, poverty level, and obesity. For the city of Grand Rapids, and they include the city of Wyoming in this as well as one market, I guess, for lack of a better word. Share of adults ever diagnosed with depression, 25%. Share of adults who are obese, they have a body mass index between 30 and 99.8. That percentage is 32.3%. Almost one-third of this town is obese. Share of total population with a disability, 11.1%. Share of total population who are divorced, 10.4%. The mean household income is $79,512. The share of total population below the poverty level is 10%.
I got questions.
Yeah.
I am not as concerned about the understanding of the actual condition of depression right now, although I'm sure it's going to be part of the show.
Yes.
My question comes when you look at these statistics. A mean income of $79,512. Do you know how many cities have mean incomes way the blank lower than $79,000?
Quite a few.
Across the United States?
Quite a few, probably.
Hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we take the prize. And the second question I have, the share of the total population below poverty level is 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that you have 15% unaccounted for. If we're going to put the majority of blame onto the economy, the poverty level, you really have trouble stretching when you only have 10% below the poverty level in the city of Grand Rapids, but you have 25% of the population depressed. That means you have double the amount of people over the threshold, and I don't know exactly what that number is. You have 15,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, I could literally understand if you had 25% of the population in Grand Rapids below the poverty level, and you also had 25% of the population in Grand Rapids depressed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's be honest about it. That is one of the biggest influences on depression is the financial situation, okay? But you've got a huge amount of people who aren't under the pressure of being financially strapped, and they're depressed in this mecca, in this cool city, in this city that the Vosses have planned and developed for decades, and like no other city maybe in North America.
And continue to do so to this very day.
And continue to do so. You talk about a failure. You talk about an experiment of conservatism that's produced these numbers. You need to ask yourself, how is it that Miami has a higher rate of poverty? Didn't we find that earlier today, Darren?
Yeah.
It has a higher rate of poverty. I've seen the so-called slum, if you want to call it that, in Miami. It's overwhelming. But to have the highest rate of cities for non-depression, that's incredible. That's telling you there's a factor that they're not going to talk about on MLive. They're not going to talk about it in WZZM. It's called the conservative factor. And you better stay tuned to Southpaws to find out how the conservative factor really works, because we're going to tell you.
Yep. And I actually have the study that WZZM and the other media sources have cited. This is insuranceproviders.com. You can get quotes on auto, home, life insurance, health insurance, everything else here. Let me read this article. While the U.S. has long been a global leader in healthcare and medicine, the nation is losing its battle with mental health. According to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention BRFSS survey, almost 1 in 5 Americans have been diagnosed with depression at some point in their lives. The number of Americans diagnosed with depression has been on the rise over the past few years, with an increase of 17.8% between 2016 and 2017 alone. Unfortunately, this may underestimate the problem, since more than half of those with a mental illness receive no treatment. Now, I want to stop there and talk about that for a moment. I can probably tell you 2 major reasons why mental illness people, while half of those people with a mental illness receive no treatment, I can tell you why. There's 2 reasons. Number 1 is probably a lack of health insurance. This is another reason why we need single-payer universal health care now. Not a buy-in, Medicare for all, single-payer universal health care now. Run by the government. This is why we need it. Number 2, a lot of insurance companies don't cover mental illness. You better check your policies, folks. And number 3, I can tell you the big reason is that we have such a stigma in this country when it comes to mental illness that people are ashamed of going to seek help. That's
Are you
the
saying
truth,
that stigma
folks.
is more severe here in conservative Grand Rapids, Michigan?
I'm saying that it's bad everywhere. This isn't just a Grand Rapids problem. This is everywhere.
I know it's everywhere. And we have depression everywhere. But our point tonight, Darren, is that we have the highest rate of depression here. And I'm suspecting that the Calvinist backdrop here may have a lot to do with it. When we said we're going to talk about the factors that contribute to the unique numbers here, I think that's one of them. Because there's not a more Calvinistic city in North America than right here on the banks of the Grand River.
Let me correct you. We are the highest among large cities.
Okay, in this category. That's what I'm saying. We're the highest. And one of the unique, you have to look at this scientifically. You have to see what we have here that other cities don't have. We're gonna throw the weather out, okay? Because it gets cloudy all over the place. We're going to look at the fact that there is a pervasive philosophy that has reigned in Grand Rapids for a long time, and it goes like this: if you're wealthy, you were chosen of God. You can do anything you want. You're going to be happy. You're going to go to heaven. If you're not wealthy, you are in for a crap load of problems, and we don't give a damn because you weren't chosen. You were chosen to be a vessel of destruction. It comes right from I've heard Calvinists talk about it. There are these people that were made out of clay in the Bible. Some vessels were made for glory. Those were the quote, quote, chosen ones, of which Betsy DeVos thinks she is one of them. Simultaneously, there were vessels that were made for, guess what, Darren? Destruction. Destruction. By who? By God. So imagine I have 10 kids. 3 of them I made for me to love, to help in college, to give a break to. But 7, I created them. I had sex just to produce 7 kids to torture, to make as vessels of destruction, for the rich to completely and totally subjugate, for the rich to take advantage of, for the rich to get richer off of. My 7 other little pots of clay, That's the Calvinistic belief. I'm not making it up. If it sounds draconian to you listeners out in, I don't know, New Mexico right now, or down in Virginia who are listening to us, or wherever in California now, we're glad you're tuning. We have in this area a complete yoke of depression. And I'm saying that it comes large part from the Calvinistic foundation. You go 40 miles west of here, Darren, there's a big tribute to the guy that walked up on the shore. He was a Dutch, I don't know, De Kloeken, I don't know what his name was. He stuck his cross in the ground and claimed this to be a reformed area. The DeVosses give more money to the Reformed Church and the Reformed College called Hope. And now we're sitting in this generations-long production of Christian Reformed ethic and philosophy, and we're the most depressed large city in the United States. You got to add it up.
I want to continue reading this article. Again, this is at insuranceproviders.com. Mental health is a complex phenomenon affected by a myriad of factors, such as genetics, stress, environment, and physical health. For example, stressful life events are associated with an increased risk of mental health problems. At the city level, CDC and census data show the higher divorce rates generally correspond to higher rates of depression. However, whether people suffering from depression are at higher risk of divorce or whether divorce itself increases the risk of depression is debated in the scientific literature. So yeah, they're not sure which one's the cause and which one is the symptom.
They're not going to tell you what the cause is. They'll beat all around the barn before they do that.
Let me continue. Furthermore, unchecked mental illness can directly affect physical health. Research has found that mental health diagnoses were linked to higher rates of infectious diseases, respiratory diseases, and weight